Daniel Reeves stared at the pristine white walls of the transport shuttle, his hands trembling slightly as he reviewed the contract for the 100th time. 3 months ago, he'd been a mid-level linguistics officer at the Terran Communications Hub, translating routine diplomatic correspondence. Now he was humanity's first volunteer for an interspecies intimacy study with the Ilyari Collective. "What the hell was I thinking?" he muttered, watching the massive Ilyari research station grow larger through the viewport. The crystalline structure seemed to pulse with soft blue light, beautiful and alien against the star field. When the recruitment notice had appeared on his desk, it seemed straightforward: cultural exchange opportunity. Study human emotional bonding practices with peaceful alien civilization. Compensation: 50,000 credits plus full research publication rights. He'd imagined sitting in conference rooms, maybe demonstrating handshakes or explaining holiday traditions. The shuttle docked with a gentle hiss, and Daniel's stomach lurched as artificial gravity shifted. The airlock cycled open, revealing his first glimpse of Ilyari architecture, organic curves and flowing lines that seemed to breathe with life. "Welcome, Daniel Reeve." The voice was melodious, carrying an accent he couldn't place. He turned to see her, tall, graceful, with skin the pale blue of dawn sky and hair like cascading fire. Her features were elegantly alien yet undeniably feminine, with large eyes that seemed to hold depths of intelligence. "I am Kirith, lead researcher for this project." She extended a hand in what he recognized as a learned human gesture. Her skin was warm, surprisingly soft. "I trust your journey was comfortable." "Yes, thank you." Daniel's voice came out rougher than intended. "I have to admit, I'm not entirely sure what I've signed up for." Kirith tilted her head with what might have been amusement. "We study emotional bonding through direct observation and interaction. My people experience connection, differently than humans. We seek to understand your capacity for what you call intimacy." She gestured down a corridor lined with observation chambers. "Tomorrow we begin with baseline measurements. Heart rate, stress hormones, neural activity during various proximity scenarios." Her gaze lingered on him with clinical interest. "It should prove most illuminating." Daniel swallowed hard, realizing his quiet life of translating documents was about to become very complicated indeed. Daniel's first night on the Ilyari station was restless. His quarters were comfortable but alien, the bed seemed to mold itself to his body, and the walls displayed slowly shifting patterns that were supposedly calming. He'd barely slept when soft chimes announced morning. Kirith met him in the observation chamber, a circular room with transparent walls offering a breathtaking view of space. She wore a form-fitting outfit that seemed to shift color with her movements, and Daniel found himself staring before quickly looking away. "Today we establish baseline readings," she explained, gesturing to sensors embedded in the walls. "Please, sit here." She indicated a chair positioned uncomfortably close to hers. As Daniel settled in, he felt the subtle hum of scanning equipment. "Your heart rate has increased by 12% since entering the room," Kirith observed, consulting a holographic display. "Is this normal human response to proximity?" "I'm just nervous," Daniel admitted, hyper-aware of her presence beside him. "Nervous." She repeated the word thoughtfully. "We have no equivalent concept. May I?" Without waiting for an answer, she reached out and placed her palm against his chest, directly over his heart. The touch sent electricity through him. "Fascinating," she murmured, her large eyes studying his face intently. "Your pulse accelerates further at direct contact. Are you experiencing what humans call attraction?" Daniel's mouth went dry. That's a very direct question. My people value directness. We find human emotional subtlety puzzling." She leaned closer, her red curls catching the light. "Your pupils have dilated. Your breathing pattern has changed. These are indicators of arousal, yes." "You're very beautiful," Daniel said quietly, surprised by his own honesty. For the first time, Kirith seemed momentarily off balance. A faint flush appeared on her pale blue skin. Beautiful? We do not, that is, my people do not typically. She paused, studying him with new intensity. You find our physical form pleasing? Very much so. Something shifted in her expression, a crack in her clinical composure. This is unexpected data, she said softly, her hand still resting against his chest where his heart hammered against his ribs. Over the following days, their sessions grew longer and more intimate. Kirithess would ask Daniel to demonstrate human gestures, how he might touch someone he cared about, how he would show affection. Each demonstration required her participation, creating a strange dance of scientific inquiry and growing attraction. Show me how humans comfort each other, she requested during their 5th session. The observation chamber had been dimmed to what she called intimacy lighting. Daniel hesitated. Usually, we'd hold each other. Put our arms around. He gestured helplessly. Demonstrate, she said, but her voice had lost its clinical edge. Slowly, Daniel moved closer and wrapped his arms around her. She was taller than most human women, her body fitting against his in ways that felt both foreign and perfectly right. Her skin was warm through the thin fabric of her outfit. Your species finds this pleasant? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Very. Daniel's arms tightened slightly. Do you? For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then, tentatively, her arms came up to circle his waist. Yes. This is unexpected. We Ilyari do not typically engage in physical comfort. What do you do when you're sad or afraid? We process the emotion logically. We meditate. She pulled back slightly to look at him. But this feels better. More complete. Daniel brushed a strand of her red hair from her face. That's the point of intimacy. It's not just physical, it's emotional connection. Connection, she repeated. I am beginning to understand. When you touch me, I feel less alone. That's exactly right. Kirithess studied his face with wonder. Is this what humans call falling in love? The question hung in the air between them. Daniel realized his feelings had crossed far beyond professional courtesy or even physical attraction. I think, he said carefully, we're both learning something neither of us expected. Her response was to lean into him again, her head resting against his shoulder. For the first time since arriving, Daniel felt truly at home. Part 4, Crossing Lines. The pretense of pure research finally shattered during their 10th session. Kirithess had been unusually quiet, her typical scientific curiosity replaced by something deeper and more personal. The research committee has asked for a demonstration, she said without preamble. They want to observe human, intimate contact. Daniel felt his stomach drop. You mean they want to watch us? Yes. Her pale blue skin showed the faint flush he'd learned to recognize. I told them no. No. I said the data was incomplete. That I needed more time to understand the emotional components before they could properly observe the physical aspects. She met his eyes. I lied to them, Daniel. My people do not lie. Why? Because what happens between us is not for their observation. It is ours. She stepped closer, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her large eyes. Is that selfish? Is that human of me? Very human, Daniel said softly. And I'm glad. I have been thinking about your words. About connection. About love. She reached up to touch his face, her fingers tracing his jaw. I believe I am experiencing these things. Kirithess. I want to know what it feels like to be completely connected to another being. Will you show me? Daniel's answer was to cup her face in his hands and kiss her softly. She responded with surprising passion, her arms wrapping around him as she pressed closer. The kiss deepened, becoming urgent, desperate, two beings from different worlds finding something universal in each other. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "The monitors," Daniel whispered. "I disabled them," she said, her voice husky. "For the first time in my life, I want privacy." What followed was tender and passionate, a careful exploration of two different forms of intimacy merging into something beautiful and new. Daniel marveled at her strength, her grace, the way her skin seemed to glow in the dim light. Kirithess discovered the profound vulnerability and trust that came with complete physical connection. Afterward, they lay entwined, her red hair spread across his chest like fire against snow. "I understand now," she whispered. "Why your species values this so highly. It is not just physical pleasure, it is the sharing of souls." "Now you're thinking like a human," Daniel said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Perhaps," she said, "that is not such a terrible thing." The research project was scheduled to end in 3 days. Daniel had tried not to think about it, but the reality pressed down on him like a physical weight. He would return to Earth, to his quiet life of translating documents, while Kirithess would compile her data and move on to the next study. They hadn't spoken about it directly, but he could see the same tension in her movements, the way she lingered during their sessions as if trying to memorize every moment. "The committee is pleased with my preliminary findings," she said as they sat together in the observation chamber, watching stars whirl past the transparent walls. "They are already discussing the next phase of interspecies research." "That's good," Daniel said, though his heart wasn't in it. "They want to study human family structures next. Observe parent-child bonding, sibling relationships." She paused. "They have asked me to recommend a suitable research team. You'd be perfect for it." "I declined the assignment." Daniel looked at her in surprise. "Why?" "Because I have submitted a request for extended cultural exchange. I want to study human civilization from the inside, to live among your people, to understand the context that creates such capacity for connection." She met his eyes. "I have requested assignment to Earth." "Kirithess. I know this is unprecedented. My people will think I have been compromised by my research. They may be right." She took his hand. "But I cannot imagine returning to my old life, to emotional isolation, after learning what it means to love." "Are you sure? You'd be giving up everything, your career, your world." "I would be choosing everything," she corrected. "A life with meaning. With connection. With you, if you want that." Daniel's answer was to pull her close and kiss her deeply. When they broke apart, both were laughing through tears. "So what happens now?" he asked. "Now we write a new kind of research proposal," she said, her eyes bright with possibility. "A study of long-term interspecies relationships, conducted through direct participant observation. That could take years to complete properly." "Decades," she agreed solemnly. "Perhaps a lifetime." 6 months later, Daniel stood in the garden of their small house overlooking the Pacific Ocean, watching Kirithess tend to alien flowers that somehow thrived in Earth soil. Her red hair caught the sunlight as she worked, and when she looked up and smiled at him, he marveled again at the beautiful impossibility of their life together. "Any regrets?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Only one," she said, leaning back against him. "That it took an interspecies research project to teach me what love means." "Well," Daniel said, pressing a kiss to her neck, "I'd say the research was a complete success." Her laughter rang out across the garden, carrying on the wind toward the stars.